Okay, so welcome everybody. I will talk to you about an open source project, DITA SEMIA. SEMIA means Semantic Information Architecture, and it's based on an Oxygen custom framework I have started to develop about 3 years ago. And we use in our company this to write functional software specifications. And since I had quite some requirements that I didn't see covered by DITA or Oxygen, I made some improvements or extensions. And lately, about half a year ago, I started to refactor my custom framework to be compatible with DITA, or at least DITA-OT Toolkit, because I wanted to use DITA-OT Toolkit for publishing. And I also decided, or my company decided, to make these extensions be open source. So we founded a joint development with another company, Parson. They are experts in technical communication, so we work together. My company puts in the programming power, and they have the experience in DITA. And well, we provide plugins for Oxygen for authoring and for publishing with DITA-OT Toolkit. Most of the samples, actually, for the first part, all the samples are taken from the GitHub project, where you can already download it. So let's take a look at the first feature I have added. It is Xsl conref. So the basic idea is to extend the standard DITA concept of content references and add an XSLT transformation. So content reference means that you refer to some content, and instead of displaying a link, you display the content itself. Now with adding an XSLT transformation before displaying it, you can have even more use cases. And since the source can be anything that can be processed by XSLT, which is basically any kind of data, you can also use other input formats. Now let's take a look at the first sample. I have a reference with some child reference topics. And my task is I want to provide here an overview of all the child reference topics. So an unordered list with their short description and maybe a link. You can't do this with the standard DITA conref, because while the information is there, it's not in the right format. You have here short description, but there's no way to put it into a list item. But it's very simple to write an XSLT script that does this. So let's take a quick look at my script. It creates an unordered list, and for each reference I create a list item with a paragraph using the title. If there is a short description, I will take just the input as the content of the short description, put it into a paragraph element. And if there is an ID attribute set for the reference, I can also create a cross-reference with some textual content before and after. And the result will look like this. You can vaguely see some gray background. This means this content is not editable because it is generated. So now if I change here some content and I refresh it, you will immediately see that the topic has changed, the title. Let's look now at the text content. So what does the author have to do to make this work? Well, just like with the standard conref, he just has to add an attribute, a specific attribute. In this case, since the XSLT script is the core part, he just has to enter the URI of the script, and the result will be displayed. I didn't specify any import in this case because the default behavior of Xsl conref is to use the current file as input if I didn't specify anything else, which is actually the common use case, at least in my environment. So now this already works very well, but at least I have a problem that the authors in my company, they are system architects, but they have no knowledge in XSLT programming, at least not all of them. So I need to find a way that I can provide these concepts for my colleagues as well, and this can be done by specialization. So the idea is I create a specialized element, local talk, that will generate exactly this output, and the author can just insert this element and doesn't have to do anything else, and he just gets the overview. This I can show you in the next sample. So here, okay, it's this time I also didn't do this as an unordered list, but I implemented a specialized section element with some title and some introduction. Again, the list is the same. Now let's look at the text. And as you can see, there's only a local talk element, okay, with an ID, because in my framework every section has an ID. And so how can my framework now know that it should resolve this? This can be done by using attribute defaults, which I totally love when specializing elements. And I have set here a default attribute, again using this Xsl attribute. And now, to be independent of any directory structure, I use a unified resource name. And so in my framework, I can register this URN in the catalog, and it will work magically. Now that, so what we have reached that is the author can easily use it, but maybe he wants to modify the output. It should look a little different. So I have within the same file another sample. This is also a local talk element, but it looks completely different. So I don't have a title, no introduction, and here this text also looks different. This can be done by providing some custom parameters. Let's take a look at the script first. So this is a Xsl script to generate this. I have put here several parameters that should be accessible by the author. And again, I'm using attributes for this. So as you can see here on the local talk element, there are plenty of attributes set or changed from the default values. So the introduction has been removed, the title has been removed. And so if I change again, it will immediately change and the title will be visible. These attributes are in the dedicated namespace, so the framework will simply take all the attributes within this namespace and pass them to the script before execution as parameters. Well, one more extension here, which is the advantage of this smart references. I have here also added a local talk element, but you don't see any overview, just lightly gray text, which is a hint for the author. It won't be visible in the output at all. And it tells the author, well, you don't only have a single child element. It makes no sense to create an overview. So I can make my references be context sensitive and smart. And again, if the author says, well, I know it better, it makes sense, I can change the minimal number to 1, and then it will be visible again. So, as I said, my Xsl conref can process almost any content. I can also use it to import data, like magic URLs can do. So I have here a sample where I'm referencing a CSV file. I can show you the file. Here I'm header some data, and I can import it as well. In this case, this Xsl conref is totally independent from the current file, so I don't need the current file as input. So for a performance reason, I didn't use, I specified here a start template that should be executed first. And again, some Xsl script. And the file that should actually be loaded, I can pass on as custom parameter. So looking at the script again, you see here I have a custom parameter with a CSV file, and then I will resolve the URI and use the unparsed text to get the input and do the parsing and so on. And finally, I can not only generate textual output, DITA content, but DITA, as well as Oxygen, as well as DITA-OT Toolkit, support embedded Svg graphics. So I can also generate something like a sequence diagram, which currently is based on the input here. So if I say I don't want, I remove this function call, and this should be component XY, and I refresh, the graphic will immediately be modified. So here's the new component name. So what is special about this? As I said, we use this for writing functional software specifications, and this kind of overviews are already visible while the author or the system architect specifies the software, so it's great help for him. And also, due to this specific interface, I can hide the DITA complexity, or quite a lot of the DITA complexity, from the author. So the author just has to insert some local TOC element, or maybe he doesn't even have to do this, because maybe the local TOC element is declared as mandatory by the schema. So as soon as the author inserts a new body element, which is probably mandatory by the topic, the overview will automatically be inserted, and the author doesn't have to worry at all about this. Well, this was the first feature I want to present. Maybe already questions about XSLT conref? Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is totally unrelated to DITA, but still has the origin in my framework. Well, I have quite a lot of XSL transformation scenarios. I'm extracting data from my document and want to import it somewhere else or get some reports and stuff like that. With XSL already provides some feedback to the user with XSL message, which is already quite fine. And Oxygen already adds the ability to let the user, the one who executed the transformation scenario, at the beginning through a dialogue. But what I was missing is some kind of interaction during the transformation. So the script should do some transformation, then a problem arises, so the user has to interact with it, and then the script should proceed. This is, at least to my knowledge, currently not possible. So I made it possible with some section extension instructions. So the first one was a very simple message dialog, where with just an OK button is surely no real interaction, but it solves the problem that people can easily ignore any kind of messages, even if you write with capital letters, warning, don't proceed. They can ignore it very easily if it's just at the bottom in a message window. Now, if I run this transformation, a dialog will pop up. So at least the author has to press the OK button, and I think that's all I can do. So, well, here you see the command I've created, message dialog. You can specify a title, an icon, and some text content. Behind this, there is no magic. I just took the standard Java Swing message dialog or message pane, or however it sounds. And I did the same with an option dialog. So a simple use case would be when I'm generating a file using result document, I won't get any kind of warning when the file already exists. It will just be overwritten. Maybe I don't want this always to be. So what I did in my code is I checked if the file exists with some embedded Java code. And then if it already exists, I create an option dialog, providing here the options override or abort, while override is the default behavior. And now if I run this transformation, again, from within my script, this dialog will appear, and so I can decide, do I want to overwrite it? Yes. Then I have another check, is the file write protected? And if so, well, I can tell again the author, well, do something. So if we say retry, okay, it won't change anything. He has to go to the file system, remove the write protection, and then I can proceed. Okay, so now it's getting more interesting. Maybe the input I need from the author is more complex, more than just a decision 1, 2, or 3 options. But I want to have a very flexible dialogue because I need textual input, and I didn't want to invent anything new. And there is in Java, there is a Swing class that already supports some HTML or XHTML, and it's very easy to generate HTML from XSLT. So why not create an extension instruction that takes HTML as input and displays it? So you have here, from your XSLT script, a dialog with all supported fields. Since this is based on Java Swing, it supports all the input from HTML 3.2. So I can add some default content, modify it, change some, and press OK. And my script will just put the result of my command in the output. So for each input field I will generate one element with a new value as content, and an additional one with a button, with the text of the button that the user has pressed to end the dialog. And one more option that has lately been added. Well, my use case was I'm extracting data from my document and want to import it into the database, all within one single transformation. But if I overwrite some data in my database, maybe I did some mistakes, and I can get in quite some trouble if I import erroneous data. So before I import the data, I want to make sure that the author really checks the differences. So what I did is I generated some HTML report listing up the changes, and then the author have to say, yes, import this data or not. Of course, I could have used this HTML dialog as well, but to display a large chunk of data, this dialog is not that suitable, but Oxygen is. So what I did is I implemented, or actually I asked a colleague to implement it, to implement a file, here, open file, implement another instruction. This opens any file within Oxygen. And you can display the URL and say author mode or text mode. And if I now run this transformation, well, first it will generate a temp file and display it immediately in Oxygen before the transformation ends. And I have also used an option that won't block Oxygen by this dialog. So while this dialog is open and this transformation is still running, I can do here work with Oxygen and check if the data is all right. And if I say, OK, that's exactly what I wanted, I press OK, and another file result will be generated and also opened. Well, this works easily within transformation scenarios. You just have to add a special configuration file for Saxon, so to integrate this Java library and the instructions. I made this also already work with XSLT author operations, not with the standard one, but I implemented my own one because the standard one, you have so far no chance to modify the configuration. And maybe it could be evenly integrated in Schematon quick fixes, but not without support from Oxygen because you have to modify the configuration for the Saxon to make this work. OK, second part done. Any question for this? Yes?
Is it possible to do this in a batch run, for instance? Or is it only for the Oxygen?
Yes.
Only for the
Well, the Java code is very simple because I didn't invent anything new. I just called standard Swing dialogues. And I don't think this will work from batch. I have no idea how Java will behave if you do this. But no, I know it won't work because I use the Oxygen as parent frame and, well, the Oxygen window. But I don't know if I remove this, maybe it works. I have no idea.
No problem. That's a Java, also Java,
Yep.
execution if you use the Saxon. Java.
Yep. I didn't try it because I only use Oxygen. So. Yes?
You said you have a special Saxon configuration to execute Java code?
No, it's just to make make extension instructions work in Saxon. You just have to do some configuration. I can hopefully just let me show you the file. Oh no, wrong folder. XSLT code here, there it is. Okay, now finally. So this is the configuration file, and actually it's all about this. I prefer this one. So you have to define here an extension element, and you just say, match this namespace. It's in the Xsl script as well, and say and provide a class parse for the factory. And of course, you have to add the jar library to the class parse.
And does the Java code is available?
It's all uploaded on GitHub.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions? Okay, next one. Now again to DITA specific, or at least to my interpretation of DITA, because during my work I'm hearing quite often, well, this is no valid DITA specialization, but I don't care that much about it because I just want to make it work. It works with Oxygen, it works with DITA-OT toolkit. I'm fine. So this, the background is I have quite a lot static content in my documents, in my specialized elements, that I don't want the author to write always some prefix to a table or stuff like that. And Oxygen already, DITA already provides this idea with an attribute spec title. So if you add this spec title attribute with a default value to maybe an unordered list, it will automatically generate a title, just like a section. But just the title was not sufficient for me, so I extended this quite a lot. So I support title, some content or default content. Default content means display this until the author writes some text, some prefix, suffix, or even table headers. And I'm also supporting embedded XParse expression to automatically display context-sensitive content. So as a first sample, let's look at the table header. As you can see, these tables look totally identical, which is not very exciting, but they have different structure. So the second one, here I have a just ordinary header, which I can edit with a t-head element. And this header, this table, let's look at the structure. Well, it doesn't have a header at all. It just, so the header appears magically. It has been defined by an attribute, whereas in the specific namespace, CBA for content by attribute. And I just set here my header titles with a delimiter, and with, due to some special CSS rules and also some special preprocessing templates in my DITA-OT toolkit plugin, it will generate a header. So my use case is I have a specialized table that user should use, but since it's a specialized table, well, when I'm designing the XML schema, I know exactly what title should be there. So I don't want to ask the author, please write exactly this word. It would be a stupid interface. So I just put this into my schema, and the author doesn't have to worry about this at all. Now another example is I overrode, I specialized the example element, which is a section, and I added an example title with some default content. So when I insert an empty example, automatically Oxygen will insert an empty example title element, and immediately some title will be displayed. Well, it's an example, so why not call it example? As you can see here, I display some gray text, again, or only as a hint for the author. This is default content, you can just overwrite it. So as soon as I start typing, the default content will disappear. Now this only works well if I only have a single example. If I have more examples, they should not be called all examples. So maybe I just want to add a number to it. And exactly this can be done as well with some default content. So just to prove that this is really empty, you see here this example title, they are all empty. And the content comes from the framework, because in my attribute, here I have set, again, it's gray, that means it's a default attribute from the schema. I can place here in curly braces some XPath expression that checks are there any sibling example elements. If so, create a number. If not, just display only example. Well, and that's it for this part. Again, chance for questions. So, and this was the part what has already been now implemented. All these samples, they are uploaded on GitHub. Now I just want to give a quick forecast what is planning next. We will start to implement some map awareness, because it means within some single topic, I want to have access to information from other topics within the DITA map. So for instance, for the Xsl conref, this local talk makes actually not much sense when I use DITA maps, because usually a topic doesn't have directly a child, but it's being declared as child within the DITA map. So to make this work, I have to access somehow the DITA map and do this in an efficient way. So I need some kind of caching. I have already done this in my custom framework, but I need to convert it to this open source version. Another feature would be that I can jump from one topic to another. So my idea would be at the bottom line, provide some buttons saying go to the next topic or previous topic or go to the parent topic. And to display topic numbers. This is for us very important because we use quite a lot PDF generation. And when we get some feedbacks as comment within the PDF, we need to put it back into our original oxygen. And it helps a lot to have exactly the topic number being displayed. And as you can see here already, this is my old framework where this already is working, and it's very nice. Another feature which I already implemented in my old framework, not ported yet, is to provide quick fixes for invalid cross-references. So when you move a file or maybe some content within the file to another file, all cross-references will become invalid because the file is no more valid. But since when I'm map aware, I can scan the whole map for this ID and suggest some other file that can be automatically placed in the cross-reference. And the last one is referencing identifiers, which is very important for us because the functional software specification has tons of references to any kind of identifiers, database columns, software components, enumeration values. And this is also requires to use to be map aware. I want to give you a quick demonstration on how this works. So here's some content that could be from within a functional software specification. And here are several references to any kind. For instance, here I'm referring to some structure. So this identifier should be declared anywhere. And what I can do now is I mark it as a key ref. And what you see is immediately, well, it's I have a green link symbol. This means it's valid. The appearance will change because, well, structures are in my environment are displayed with an angular bracket and with monospace font. I have here field, so I mark this as key ref as well. Well, it's not valid. So I get immediate feedback. Well, the identifier road is not valid. I can open dialog and find, well, why is it not valid? Well, why is it not valid? Okay, well, and I can choose the right one. Actually, I don't find it because this dialog is quite primitive yet. But I can choose any other and again have a reference. If I'm referencing to enumeration values, well, I don't use a key ref, but I use a key name ref. What the change is, I will display the name as well. And in this case, okay, my framework is somehow broken. Oh no, I can have type of person. So now if I'm referencing this value, the name of this enumeration value will be displayed as well. So I make sure that this one has really this meaning. And if again I change here, create a key ref to this one, I see, well, it's not valid. Okay, obviously I forgot an E here. I add it and it will immediately notice, okay, now it's a valid reference. Now another feature is these keys are implicitly defined. So let's jump to where this key was defined, not in the key map like commonly with DITA, but just within the structure. So here I'm defining a structure all with specialized elements. And as you can see here with the little key icon, this automatically registers this identifier. And I can also combine this with XSLT conref. So you see here the import of a data model, which we create with dedicated software, Toad Data Modeler. And I'm using XSLT conref to convert this XML data into my document. And the code I'm generating, it will automatically register the identifiers, which is the tables and the columns, as keys, so I can reference them. So switching back to text mode, you see here's only an XSLT conref. As I said, it's my old framework, so it looks a little different. Well, that's for the future. Just so to finalize the roadmap, what's next? Well, there is currently some kind of documentation, mainly a lot of samples. But we have started working on a more sophisticated documentation, really how to use it and so on. And well, next I'm planning to implement the map awareness and this advanced key referencing you saw at the end. Okay, that's from my part. Now again, your chance for any questions. Okay, thanks for attention.